make us aware that we have a noble mission to continuously remind us that what we are doing is impacting on lives and livelihoods of communities, and that we're getting ajr for it.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to another edition of ISDB Connect, brought to you from the Islamic Development Bank's Communications and Outreach Department, where we bring together members of our senior management and the staff to connect, discuss, and learn about each other. Today, our guest is our Vice President for Operations, Dr Mansur Muhtar. Dr Mansur Muhtar was formerly the Finance Minister of Nigeria, and he held many positions also at the African Development Bank and the World Bank before joining IDB. It is our pleasure to have you, Your Excellency. Welcome to ISDB Connect.
Thank you, Dr. Jamil. I'm delighted to be here with you today, and I know it's taken a long time to firm up this schedule, so I'm delighted that we're able to make it finally.
Yes, excellent.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
Great.
I had a look at your profile, and also being a Nigerian, I think I have already an advanced knowledge about you, and also coming from Kano. And I saw that, for example, you did your studies, you studied economics, and then went to Cambridge University and also studied development economics, and then up to the PhD level. And your career trajectory was in the development arena, from the World Bank back to Nigeria, and now here at the Islamic Development Bank. So my question is, was it by design or by coincidence?
I would say it was by design. I was really interested in pursuing a career that would help me work towards improving the lives of people. And I grew up in the rural area, and I saw how challenging it was for people really living there. I was partly, my father had a traditional leadership role that involved visiting communities, seeing their welfare and well-being, and appreciating how when I began to appreciate that this is really a big issue that we face. And once I understood that economics provided an avenue for tackling these problems, I pursued that as my first degree, and then pursued the development studies. But I have to say, initially, my thought was to really spend my life, most of my life, in the university and aspire to become a professor, helping advance the frontiers of knowledge in development and imparting knowledge to others, so we could have more people out there to support this cause. But I had an opportunity to venture out to work with the government on a short-term basis in an advisory capacity, and I saw that there was greater potential to do more in the policy arena, and hence the interest in working in government first, but also I had an opportunity to pursue a career in the World Bank, and I saw that as an opportunity really to broaden my horizon and perspective to learn about global development issues and to be able to gain first-hand experience with a reputable development finance institution.
Oh, that's quite interesting. So at what point, because for many people who start their career in the academia, sometimes there is just thinking that the academia is the world.
Indeed.
But when you go into the real world, you realize that there are a lot of opportunities for learning and making an impact.
Indeed.
So at what point did you make that final decision that, look, I need to go and make that impact through policy and impactful institutions like these ones?
Well, in a sense, as I said, it was just a rare opportunity that came for me to step out of the university and join the Minister of Agriculture in Nigeria as his special advisor, technical advisor. And in that context, we were involved in formulating, designing, and implementing agriculture policy for Nigeria, but also going out to the field, really. He was a practical man, an agricultural specialist who wanted to complement his science skills with an economist perspective. And that really got me interested in making this shift into the real world, if you like. And at that point, he encouraged me to explore opportunities in the World Bank because he's had experience with the World Bank in running some of their projects. And I took that advice seriously and applied to the Young Professionals program at the World Bank, where I was admitted, and then that's where I really began to enhance further my appreciation of the role that we could play in shaping development outcomes in various in countries.
That's quite interesting because the bank is also now in the process of recruiting a lot of young professionals.
Indeed.
Some of whom might even be listening to you probably when they join. And now you are the vice president. How does it feel like to be a young professional? And what impact did it make in your career? I am sure this must have been more than 30 years or more.
Well, I would say it was an enriching experience as a young professional in the World Bank. We were really given opportunities to explore, to try different things, to work in different departments. There was rotations. And I think that there was also an appreciation that we needed to have mentors that would guide us in our professional development. But at the same time, really because of the selection process yielded a crop of highly talented people, there was also an interest in giving them opportunities, in allowing them to be innovative, to come up with fresh ideas, fresh insights. So I think that was one good thing about the Young Professional Program, and even to give them challenging responsibilities to stretch them to see how far they could go. But I was also, in a sense, better able to appreciate the role that YPs could play in an institution, because a couple of years later, I had the opportunity to manage the Young Professionals Program of the World Bank. Oh. And that meant really dealing with the whole cohort of the whole cycle of reaching out to talent hunting, going to universities across the world, encouraging young people, going through the interview and selection process, bringing them on board, nurturing them, following their career development. And that really made me understand that this was one window for an institution to bring in highly talented young men and women to come and contribute to development, and that really to appreciate that many of them, even though they're quite young, but the passion, the energy, the enthusiasm, the level of professionalism, the quest for excellence was really unparalleled, and it was very inspiring. And it was not surprising that it turned out that basically in the World Bank, the Young Professionals Program was considered as the talent pool for managerial succession, as was being used effectively. And for it to be so, we had to retain the integrity of the process, particularly the selection. And I recall a story where, as the administrator, we had just finished a round of interviews, and we basically, while we're in the process before concluding, and we were in Paris interviewing, and at the time, I got a call from the Vice President of Human Resources, who is overseeing us, our operations, and indicated that the President's office, it was then President Wolfenson, who was the President, who was a very powerful President, really, very, very strong personality. And he had earlier on recommended a candidate who happened to be the daughter of the Brazilian Minister of Finance, who is his good friend. And he just assumed, because he was coming in, he had just come on board, and he assumed that as president, he could influence the selection of a young professional, and had probably given a commitment to the Brazilian Minister of Finance, his close friend. And it turned out that we could not even shortlist that candidate for interview. So he was very furious, and really, but at the same time, our vice president was very defensive in terms of safeguarding the integrity of this program. And in the end, he had to agree and accept that this is how it is.
Wow, that's a lot of lessons there.
Indeed.
Really, I think we need to drill on this point a little bit more. So, how important it is, because if the selection process and the integrity is maintained, you see it in the quality of the output.
True.
How much do we need to emphasize that if we want to have an institution that is really that would have the capability to reach its optimal level in its delivery?
Oh, that is very important, and that should run through everything we do, really. We must have merit-based processes in place for bringing in talent. And alhamdulillah, we've done a good job. We have a good crop of people. I mean, when I think that's very striking is the diversity and the strength of the pool of staff that we have in terms of their talent, really. And I think that this is a source of strength for the institution, and that cannot be compromised upon. So we need to really continue, and particularly for programs such as the Young Professionals Program, really we need to maintain these high standards. At the same time, of course, we have to be creative in identifying, and we have to be able to recognize hidden talents, because sometimes it's not so obvious. So you need to really, the kinds of parameters you use for selection need to be very creative and innovative and very exhaustive and rigorous, so that you don't lose out on people potentially who could come on board and not be able to, but you missed that opportunity.
So how did it feel then, being a Nigerian and having to go through this with a Nigerian on your panel?
No, it was a bit, but it's a very transparent process, basically, and there is lots of filters and channels there are lots of filters that you have to go through. So being the fact that I was Nigerian did not really improve or enhance his chances. Yeah.
So it was his capability that made him settle.
Yes.
Quite interesting. And I understand that also you have contributed towards the establishment, or at least in the process of formulating the Young Professionals Program of IDB.
Well, yes. And Dr. Hassan keeps reminding me, and incidentally, some months back, he showed me the business card I gave him while I was here, which I've completely forgotten about. Yes, indeed. But yeah,
that's interesting.
Fished it out, and they did reach out to the bank, the World Bank, and wanted to learn about our experiences as they sought to revamp the Young Professionals Program here. And we shared with them some ideas, and at the time I offered to come here and spend time with them, meet with the YPs also. For us, I thought it was also an opportunity to get some insights from them. I was sure that there was something we could learn from them. And it was, of course, a very fruitful visit. And we were hosted by a luncheon by His Excellency, the President, Dr. Ahmad Muhammad Ali. I recall a whole lamb on the table laid out there, sumptuous meal and all that. So it was good. I remember those days, yes, indeed. But little did I know that I would be coming back here, of course, as Vice President.
Destiny.
Alhamdulillah.
Yes, that's quite interesting. And while you working on as a young professional and growing to become a real development expert, are there projects or other policy issues that you have handled that are still memorable, that you still feel that their impact sticks with you?
Well, I think the one that comes closest to mind is perhaps my engagement with Rwanda. Okay. And I was overseeing projects in the agriculture sector before the genocide.
The mid-1990s.
Yes, and things were moving reasonably well. Well, maybe there were some issues, implementation challenges, etc. But with the genocide, massive dislocation of people and the institutions themselves, and you had new sets of people that you had to deal with. The new government came. Many of the people were had been living in a different country. And we had to re-engage with them and try to support them in rebuilding their economy, in reviving the agriculture sector, where a large number of the people had deserted, have migrated out of the country or these things. So that was very challenging to really conceptualize and design a project. And we had to do it at the time. It was really an experimental basis to introduce a lot of flexibility in the project design itself that allowed us to, and also to begin on a pilot basis and to really look at it in modules and incrementally focus on capacity building development and see the project grow and nurture and expand it to cover the whole community. But I have to say, when we started, it was very difficult to even begin to imagine how this could be taken forward. And I know that the first meeting we had on the project when we came back from mission and made some proposals, it was clear that this was not going to address the specific needs, because it was clear we were grappling with how to package this. And then we had a discussion and we were challenged to go back and think through this, and we had some useful ideas. So we went back to the drawing board and came back again with this. So the whole process itself was a learning experience for me. But at the end of the day, for me, what was very satisfying was to go back there 2.5 years down the line and to see really that things were picking up and lots of women engaged and being supported in the agriculture sector and showing appreciation for the support of the bank and really seeing us as messiahs, if you like. It was really something that I found very fulfilling, that sense of supporting, going into a challenging situation, supporting people that are starting, rebuilding their lives from scratch to establish a means of livelihood.
Oh, that's quite interesting. I'm sure the World Bank experience alone can take out the entire slot for this. So let's make a transition. For many people who work in the diaspora, professionals from different countries, one of the most difficult decisions to make, not because they don't want, is to make a decision to go back also and serve in their countries. Because of a number of challenges, and sometimes certain places give you they make you comfortable.
Indeed.
And you made that decision to go back to Nigeria from the World Bank.
Yes.
Take us through, how did you make that decision? Why?
Well, I have to say, when I joined the World Bank as a young professional, my initial plan was to spend about 5 years, gain more experience, go back to Nigeria and serve in the public sector. I felt I could really deliver impact in my country. Now, at the time, though, as the time progressed, the time Nigeria was ruled by a military ruler, Abacha, and things were very difficult and challenging. And so the decision, I kept postponing the decision. I just felt the environment was not conducive to go back to Nigeria. But really, I was determined, and even in the choices I made in relation to whether to rent a house or get a mortgage, I didn't bother to get a mortgage. Even the electronics I was buying, like the TV and stuff, I opted for dual voltage, even though it was more expensive. I paid the premium because I said, look, I'm not going to stay here long. But it went on and on and on. And then the opportunity came when when Abacha passed away, and we had a transitional administration of General Abdul Salam, which was just for 1 year.
Correct.
And that he had an advisory committee, that a presidential advisory committee, where one of my schoolmates was there, Nasir El-Rufai. And so they encouraged me to go and spend about 6 months with them to work on the transition plan and to shape the economic policy for the incoming government.
Okay, the Obasanjo
which I
government
thought was a good opportunity. And I took it, although it was a difficult decision for me because I had to leave my family behind, and of course, I needed to maintain them. So I got a salary advance from the bank of $50,000 to be able to keep them and while I was away, and also to support myself if need be. And it was kind of to be paid over a longer period of time. I just felt it was worth the sacrifice, and it was also an opportunity for me to taste the waters to see if really the situation was conducive. And it's where I enjoyed the experience. And then a year or two down the line, I had the opportunity to go back to Nigeria after finishing that secondment to work in the debt management office, which I eventually headed. And we were working on a very exciting or very challenging, but at the same time, important task of assisting, setting up a debt office and formulating a debt strategy for engaging with the creditors to try to seek debt relief, because that was the primary goal of the government, where they were saddled with heavy debt burden, and the president made it his priority. But it also allowed me the opportunity to be part of the National Economic Management team that drove economic reforms during that period. And that was very fulfilling for me. And it was worth the little sacrifice that I made.
That was quite interesting, because I remember at the time when President Obasanjo was the president and Nigeria got this debt relief.
Indeed.
Certain names kept flying, not only in Nigeria, but within the African continent. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala and your good self for securing that relief, which was really big at the time. Can you tell us a little bit more about that debt relief and what role you played in that process?
Well, basically, when Obasanjo took over, he inherited a huge stock of debt. And the servicing of that debt alone was really diverting resources from key social and economic sectors of the economy. And it was really crippling. And we were only servicing this debt. There was over $30 billion or so. And at the time, when they approached the creditors to get debt relief, this did not gain any traction, because Nigeria did not have a good reputation as a country that was managing its economy and its resources well. And also, our debt management system was very flawed. We did not even have details of how much debt was owed, and the debt servicing mechanism was very poor. So he was told, go back and improve on these things, and then you come back to us. So he set up an economic team, and we worked on the economic reform side. But we also focused on really engaging with the creditors over a period of time to reach a deal, a historic landmark Paris Club deal that involved cancellation of $12 billion of this debt, which Nigeria was not eligible for, but also channeling the debt relief savings to support economic development. So we now ring-fenced, we had a common understanding, and we ring-fenced that money that was being used now to service some of the debt into social sector. And we had Amina Mohammed, who was DSG, who is now DSG, heading that team that was involved in that. So that really became a very good model for countries in engagement with the Paris Club. But it wasn't easy, I tell you, because the negotiations, especially in the last days, involved a lot of legwork across different countries. And on the last days of the negotiation, the last round of negotiations, I think we were awake for 36 hours. 36 hours, toing and froing, 36 hours. By the time we finished, we were all exhausted and came back to my hotel room. We were supposed to proceed to London in the morning. We finished in the night, and we were supposed to proceed to London in the morning. I just put my head on the pillow, and I woke up. It was 3 p.m. in the afternoon.
I hope you didn't miss your flight.
I missed my flight, but luckily enough, Ngozi was there.
Okay.
I missed that, and then suddenly I was frantically calling her, and then said, "Look, she said that's why she didn't go to bed. She realized if she put her head on the pillow there, she would not be able to wake up, and that's what happened to me. It was so incredible, really. Just like a few seconds, I put my head there, woke up, so many hours had gone by. But it was very, very fulfilling and enriching experience.
That's quite interesting. Yeah. And now, let's see, after that, you became a Federal Minister of Finance. And traditionally, the finance minister is the governor for Islamic Development Bank. How was that experience? And was that a reconnection for you with Islamic Development Bank?
Well, incidentally, at the time, because of the huge volume of work that was associated with the office, we had a minister of state, so a kind of deputy minister that was assisting the minister. And so I delegated this role because I was already overseeing the World Bank and the African Development Bank as governor. But importantly also, we wanted to remain focused on reforms because I stepped in as Minister of Finance in the midst of the global economic and financial crisis.
Yeah.
So again, the president asked me to prioritize and focus my energies and efforts on addressing this, tackling this, seeing how Nigeria could weather this crisis without the attendant negative consequences. And therefore, this was delegated. So I really never had the time or the opportunity to engage as a governor with the Islamic Development Bank. But the alternate governor then, or the Minister of
State,
Deputy Minister of State, was then designated as the governor.
Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to ISDB Connect, and our guest today is His Excellency Dr. Mansur Muhtar, our Vice President for Operations. Okay, now let's come down to the IDB journey still. I remember, which was my first time of seeing you actually as a person. It was, I think, in 2015. And I was accompanying the president at the time to provide media coverage for COMSEC.
Right.
In Turkey, in Istanbul.
Yes, I remember now.
So, yes, and then your appointment was known, but it has not been announced.
Right.
So, now I saw you walking in, and I was told that your new vice president is coming. I told them, well, he's from the same country with me and also from the home center. So, I went and greeted you. And I think that was my first ever contact with you as a person, and then you came to the bank.
Right.
So, tell us, how was the journey like? Now it's almost approaching a decade. If not, it's already a decade since you came here.
Well, it's been an incredible journey, really. A journey that has allowed me to work with talented and committed individuals and to really serve our member countries and as well as Muslim communities in non-member countries in a privileged position of being Vice President Operations. I think I have to thank God for that. And it's been, in a sense, even though I come from an MDB background and have been doing this in the World Bank and the African Development Bank, but it was different, really, and different in many respects. One, it's at a different level, higher, very strategic level as Vice President in charge of operations. Secondly, also, whereas there, at one point I was a regular staff member, was not involved directly in policy and strategic decision-making involving the whole institution, but largely in project-related activities. And subsequently, it was as a board member. And of course, the role is different. The orientations are different. The perspectives are different. But here, really, you're at the heart of it, right there where you have to oversee the bank's portfolio and really oversee the operations complex, which is the principal division or complex that deals with the supporting the mission of the bank and really supporting the economic and socio-economic transformation in member countries. It's satisfying that over the years we have the bank has achieved a lot in terms of being able to deliver support to member countries. If you look at the level of lending and disbursement, the size of the portfolio, the different initiatives, but most importantly, the results and impact. And I know that one of the most significant things in recent years is the move away from approval culture, really, to focusing on effective implementation, focusing on delivery, focusing on results. So we've seen that transformation. When I came in, we were really looking at ways to boost our lending. But then we took some lessons and we had to basically come down, look at the portfolio, clean up our portfolio, then become more focused on ensuring project quality and entry, project quality during implementation, and results and impact on the ground. We've also gone very far in revamping the country engagement strategy to really make us more appreciative of the country's needs, to engage them, to make it a more inclusive process, and also to diversify our suite of offerings. We have now the Global Practices and Partnerships Directorate. We've done a great job really in beginning to delve into the area of knowledge, providing knowledge and advisory services as added value to our member countries, but also forging partnerships, working with others to really leverage our limited resources, both human and financial. And to now, one of the challenges, of course, going forward is to see how we can scale up the available resources to be able to do more. But I think it's been a great journey, and a journey that really has been even more exciting since we embarked on this strategy realignment exercise. Because when at the time, the period, His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Suleiman Al-Jassar came on board, coincided with the end of the COVID period. We're just getting out of the COVID pandemic impact, the adverse impact. It was also a time when the global development landscape was undergoing major changes. We're seeing more crisis, more fragility in our member countries. We're seeing climate change-related issues becoming more prominent in shaping development outcomes in our member countries. We're also seeing limited progress in achieving SDGs. And so it was very good opportunity to step back a bit, think again, and look at what we are doing and see how we can improve, but think ahead also to anticipate new challenges and to see how we could overcome them, and think across to look at what others are doing and how we could benefit from those. And